I left Christianity and religious fundamentalist churches, I realized that the Bible is a translation of tales put together by a small council in the first few centuries of AD. After Constantine made Christianity the only legal Roman-enforced religion, Christianity was no longer seen as the death cult that it had been for the first 4 centuries. It became a state-instituted, protected, and observed group of people. I honestly believe that if the Emperor Constantine had not chosen for political or personal reasons to become a Christian, Christianity would have been the equivalency of the Jewish people. Even though Judaism is the original part of Christianity, there's not even 1% of people in the world that practice Judaism. If the Romans hadn't chosen Christianity to be the official religion, Christianity would have either disappeared into obscurity or had been the equivalency of a small religion. Not even a religion, just a group. They would have probably less members than the Mormons. It would be like one of those very small belief systems in Asia or Europe. And it wouldn't be the biggest religion on earth. It's only because of Constantine is Christianity even viewed as a threat. Or in this case, a positive threat. There are considered approximately 4,000 full New Testament and portion translation across 1,473 languages. I was taught that every translation of the Bible was inherently correct, perfect, without fault or mistranslation. You can't translate something 4,000 times into over 1,400 languages and not have at least one translation, if not many, that are not original, accurate, or infallible. It's impossible. You can't even translate a book 50 times without there being a difference of translation within languages. And if you just look at translations that are translated within English, where it's an English text being translated into English, you still get dozens of varieties. But when you start translating the Bible from one distinct language to a completely different language that may or may not have the correct or words that exist to create the translation that is most accurate, there are languages that may or may not have the right words to even convey a message properly. English does not have certain words that other languages have. And English is a very poor language to translate the Bible into. It's interesting how English was English was not one of the first languages the Bible was translated from or into. English is a very poor language to translate anything into. And translations have been so misused, changed. They add or detract based on how you read a sentence by adverbs, pronouns, and just regional language. It's ridiculous to claim that the Bible is without error. It's impossible. Translating it from Hebrew to Greek, then Greek to German, German to French, English, and everything in between. Every language has its own unique way of conveying emotions, thoughts, and experiences. And English is not one of the languages that has the best conception of how to put a sentence into language that makes it easy for the common person to read. And even if all Bible translations are 100% accurate, you can have 50 pastors translate a verse into many different ways, all believing that this is the only or the best way to translate a verse. Every translation of the Bible has its own errors, its own assumptions, and its own issues. It also has its own strengths. But saying that every Bible, every translation is accurate is stupid. Because these were written by hand. Until the 1400s, everything was written by hand. And we don't even have the original written manuscripts. We have copies. So we don't even know what the original said. Plus, do you honestly want to live your life based off a book that was put together around the time the wheel was created? We've moved beyond archaic, violent law. Not everywhere, obviously. But in civilized countries, we shouldn't have the death penalty. The most progressive countries there is are countries that are 80% atheist. And those countries are usually ones that are cold for half the year. Denmark, Sweden, Norway, those places. The countries with the fewest acts of violence and terrorism are places that are atheistic. Places that are extremely religious, like America, are known for having triple the production of other countries' violent acts. America just produces a lot of violent people based on polarized ideology and religious and political extremism. But without Emperor Constantine, Christianity probably would have ceased to exist. And if it was lucky enough to survive, it would be the equivalence of a very unknown religion. So it only is around because of one emperor. And a lot of people who use Christianity to forward the patriarchy and male privilege. Do you honestly think this religion would be around if everyone was treated equally and nobody used politics and religion for their own gain? Every leader that is a religious leader or uses religion uses it for power, influence, and prestige. Donald Trump got elected because he made a lot of ignorant people think that he was a good man because he sold Bibles. And we know that just because you read a Bible doesn't mean you haven't committed tax evasion. I think was it Jim Baker that did the tax evasion? Something like that. In my opinion, the closer you are to the pulpit, the more likely you're touching kids or committing some kind of embezzlement. But that's my opinion, based on fact. But biblical translations exist because somebody somewhere thought there was a better way to explain archaic language. And at the end of the day, most of these translations exist because the Protestants left Catholicism. And it's not because Protestants are better people. Protestant denominations of Christianity have killed as many people as Catholic denominations. Biblical translations exist for one reason. To teach people and to sow derision. You would not believe how many churches have been torn apart because one group, 70% of the congregation, wanted the King James Version, while 30% wanted NIV or the Discovery, the new Discovery version. It never fails to surprise me how being Christian isn't enough. You have to have this translation, sing these hymns. You have to be this special kind of Christian, or it's not good enough. At the end of the day, it sounds exhausting. How many family members have been kicked out of their homes? How many people have lost their social environment, their religion, their mentors, their family because of a Bible translation? People have been killed throughout history for owning, selling, and having in their possession a Bible. There have been people who have had to hide on threat of death because one Catholic king decided he didn't want a specific Bible in print. It's all about who's better. It's never about making the world a better place. It's which translation better fits my agenda. And at the end of the day, the King James Version Bible isn't any better than NIV. The only difference is how self-righteous someone is when they read it. And at the end of the day, those Christians who think they're better than everyone else for reading the King James Version, just remember it was King James that made the Pilgrims so uncomfortable they had to flee England to the New World. And King James was rumored to be gay. Can you imagine churches splitting themselves over a Bible that was patroned by a gay guy? So, in my opinion, it's kind of funny. Christians won't find it funny, but I find it funny. The churches split themselves over a translation that was commissioned by a gay King of England and Scotland. But at the end of it all, people have their preferences, what translation they want. That's fine. But it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what hymns you sing. It doesn't matter what color pews you sit on. It really doesn't matter whether you use a hymnal or a screen. As long as you use Bibles and screens and pews to make yourself feel better and to look down on other people or create a us versus them mentality. I mean, I know where I could tell people to stick their Bibles. And it really doesn't matter. Instead of fighting about which translation is accurate, we need to